family, friends, and lawmakers holding a memorial service to mark the death of Robert F. Kennedy 50 years ago. Kennedy laid to rest in Arlington National Cemetery, killed by an assassin's bullet. Today's service getting underway right now. As you can see, former President Bill Clinton will be speaking later this hour. But first, this. A big event this hour in Philadelphia. Eagles head coach Doug Peterson about to hold a news conference after President Trump disinvited the Super Bowl champs from yesterday's big celebration at the White House. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom on a Wednesday morning. I'm Sandra Smith.
How you doing? All right?
I'm doing all right.
I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning to you, and good morning to everybody at home. The White House putting blame on this for the to the Eagles, say it was a political stunt, saying they were trying to move the schedule amid a continuing dispute over the national anthem. President Trump explaining why he believes it's important to show that level of respect.
We stand to honor our military and to honor our country and to remember the fallen heroes who never made it back home. We stand to show our love for our fellow citizens and our magnificent Constitution. We stand to pay tribute to the incredible Americans who came before us and the heroic sacrifices they made.
Brian Yanis live in Philadelphia for us. Brian, what can we expect today?
Sandra, in a little less than half an hour, Philadelphia Eagles head coach Doug Peterson will host a press conference here at the team's practice facility. Today was a pre-scheduled open session for the media. They are practicing today. In other words, this press conference by the coach is routine. We expect him, and we know he'll talk about football. We do not know if the coach will address the elephant in the room, and that is whether or not he will field and answer these questions that he inevitably will get about the president disinviting the Philadelphia Eagles to the White House to honor their Super Bowl victory. So, as coaches do, Peterson will set the tone for how this team is going to respond today to the latest accusations hurled by the White House yesterday. In fact, expect many questions today, like what is the Philadelphia Eagles version of how all of this went down? And was the coach planning on going to the ceremony, as some have reported? Yesterday, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders accused the Eagles of abandoning its fans, acting in bad faith, saying the team attempted to reschedule the ceremony at the last moment while promising only a handful of players would show up in a political stunt intended to embarrass the president. Sandra.
Brian, what are we expecting from the players?
Look, the players are expected to speak today at 2 p.m. and from all that we've seen and heard, we expect them to be forthcoming about this topic. In fact, players have said over the course of the last few days that this is not about the national anthem. They've said that all along, underscoring that no Philadelphia Eagles player kneeled during the course of last season or during the playoffs in protest. Now, team leader safety Malcolm Jenkins, who protested last season by putting his fist in the air, released a letter on Twitter saying this about the White House, quote, "The decision was made to lie and paint the picture that these players are anti-America, anti-flag, and anti-military. We will continue to fight for impacted citizens and give a voice to those who never had one." For Jenkins and for many of these players, these national anthem protests have always been about racial inequality and about obviously police brutality. Sandra.
All right, Brian Yanis, we await that. Thank you.
3 minutes past the hour. Another alert now. What appears to be another major concession by the Obama administration to Iran. Senate Republicans releasing a report claiming the Obama administration misled Congress 3 years ago by secretly trying to help Iran gain access to the U.S. financial system. That would be a clear violation of U.S. sanctions. Rich Edson at the State Department for more on this. And Rich, good morning there. Iran had a big problem after it signed the nuclear deal. Let's start there. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, Iran, Bill, had a $6 billion problem. The Iran nuclear agreement gave Iran access to its bank accounts around the world. One of those accounts was worth about $5.76 billion in an account in Oman. But the problem for Iran, in order for it to use this money, it was in local Omani currency. It's not the most marketable currency, so it needed to convert it to something like dollars or euros. According to this report from the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, the Obama administration granted a license for Iran to essentially temporarily convert it to dollars and then euros so it could access this money. And according to the chairman of this subcommittee, he says the Obama administration, in doing so, misled the public.
I think they did so because they were desperate to get a deal. So on the one hand, they were saying that the Iranians were not going to get access to the American financial system. On the other hand, they actually granted Iran a specific license to allow them to take some of the funds.
Now, Iran actually never took advantage of this license, according to the report, because no U.S. bank would execute the transaction because they didn't like the optics of actually dealing with Iran. Bill.
So what are former Obama administration officials saying about all this claim?
Well, none would speak on the record, but a former official tells us that this was a one-time deal to give Iran access to money that it had been granted under the Iran nuclear agreement. In a statement to Fox News, the official says, quote, the specific license cannot be described as granting access to the U.S. financial system. It did not authorize Iran to conduct commercial transactions denominated in U.S. dollars or via U.S. banks. It did not allow Iran parties to open correspondent accounts at U.S. banks, and it did not allow Iran access to U.S. investments or markets. Senator Portman tells us he believes this is the only instance that this type of license, temporary license, was granted.
Rich Edson, thank you from the State Department. More to come on this, perhaps, right? Thank you. Sandra, what's next?
Fired FBI Director Andrew McCabe now seeking immunity for testimony before a Senate committee about the Clinton email investigation. Stephen Hayes is editor-in-chief of the Weekly Standard and Fox News contributor, and we always love when you are in studio.
Good to be here.
Out of Washington, D.C.
It's nice to be out of Washington,
into New
D.C.
York City. So he's asking for immunity. What does this tell us?
Well, it tells us that they're nervous. I mean, his attorney has described the potential that he could be prosecuted. There's been a criminal referral because he apparently has not been straightforward and was not honest. That puts him in some jeopardy, and I think his attorney wants to make sure that he can testify, if he's going to testify, that that's not used against him later.
And this is part of the letter in which Michael Bromwich, to whom you refer, right, the attorney representing McCabe, he sent this letter to Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, and it says no testimony or other information provided by Mr. McCabe could be used against him in any criminal case. If this committee is unwilling or unable to obtain such an order, then Mr. McCabe will have no choice but to invoke his Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, because of course there's that. If they don't grant him immunity, he can plead the Fifth.
Right, and they're far more, I mean, if you're Michael Bromwich, you're far more concerned about the potential liability or potential vulnerability of your client to criminal prosecution than you are a bad PR day by taking the Fifth.
Interesting stuff. I've got to move on to this Iran story because this seems to be gaining a bit of steam here in this idea that we've learned that the Obama administration green-lighted Iranian access to the U.S. financial system.
Yeah.
It's
a pretty extraordinary story. This is another one of these stories that's not entirely surprising because we've seen the pattern of behavior here from the Obama administration. But the Obama administration had testified both before and after this granting of temporary access to the Iranians to the U.S. financial system that they wouldn't do this. I mean, this was a problem that Republicans raised again and again and again, said, give us assurances that you won't do this. And one Obama administration after another testified, gave answers in interviews, what have you, saying, no, we won't do this. And then they went ahead and did it. What they did here is clear, is that they lied. They said things that were not true. They knew that they weren't true. No, it's a huge detail. I mean, look, there were other ways going from reals to dollars to euros, which is what they did. Mm-hmm. What they were allowed to do. They didn't actually do it.
We're talking billions of dollars.
Right. It made it more efficient. It didn't happen because the two U.S. financial institutions involved were so concerned about potential blowback that they opted not to participate. But the Obama administration, nonetheless, went out of its way to grant this preferential treatment, despite its assurances that it would never do this to the Iranians. And you just have to take a step back. If you believe, as I do, that the Iran deal was conceived in sort of a combination of arrogance and naivete, what does it say when the Obama administration goes out of its way to boost the Iranian regime in Tehran, the world's leading state sponsor of terror? This is a scandal. Remember, last week there were discussions. President Obama said, well, we didn't have scandals. This is a scandal. I'm not sure it will be treated as a scandal by our colleagues in the mainstream media. They're eager to call out Donald Trump on his lies, and I think they should when Donald Trump lies. This is a lie from the Obama administration's. I'm not expecting many of our colleagues in the mainstream media to call it a lie and to focus a lot of attention on it.
But bottom line, a large concession that was previously not known, and important point that this is coming at a time the Treasury Department's warning allies and financial institutions to guard themselves against Iran's nefarious
The report also
acts.
includes details about the administration's efforts to conduct what they called road shows to basically drum up business for the Iranian regime. It's a pretty incredible report, detailed report. We've got a story about it at the Weekly Standard right now from our Jenna Liffitz, getting into some of these details and walking people through the kind of sometimes jargony language in a way that people can understand.
Well, we grabbed this because we knew you were tweeting about this morning, and this is an important way that you phrase this. The Obama administration, this move, you point out, quote, stood in stark contrast to repeated public statements from the Obama White House, the Treasury, and the State Department, all of which denied that the administration was contemplating allowing Iran access to the U.S. financial system. We'll see where all this goes because it is developing.
It's a pretty big story.
It's clear they wanted a deal.
Clearly.
The Obama team wanted a deal with Iran before leaving.
No matter what.
Thank you, Steve. In a moment here, the Trump bump sending a San Diego businessman in a fight for the California governor's office.
Mr. Newsom made it clear that he wanted to run against me instead of another Democrat. Be careful, Mr. Newsom. Be careful what you wish for.
This would be an interesting race. Republican John Cox raring for a fight with backing from the White House. He's going to join us live in a couple minutes to tell us about what this means so far.
We look forward to that. Plus, preparations are in full swing for next week's North Korean summit. Congressman Adam Kinzinger will join us with his take on the potential historic meeting. We are less than a week away.
Also, a triumphant return for Steve Scalise today, 1 year after he was shot on a baseball field.
Kayak. Search one and done.
Nice moment this morning in Washington. Congressman Steve Scalise back on the baseball field a year after being shot. This photo tweeted by Senator Jeff Flake earlier today saying, quote, back on the field this morning, this does my heart good. He had a ton of surgeries, now able to practice for the annual congressional baseball game. And today the congressman, tweeted, it feels good to be back with the team. I bet it does. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter, right? Back on the field. I mean, amazing stuff.
It is a great sight to see him.
Yes. Game's at about a week. Back
in the uniform.
Yeah, about a week's time in Washington, D.C., so.
Absolutely. Happy to see him back on the field.
North Korea looks like it's moving along very well. A lot of relationship being built, a lot of negotiation going on even before the trip. But it looks like it's coming along fine. We'll see what happens. But very important. It'll be a very important couple of days.
Hard to believe, just days away now, President Trump talking about preparations for next week's summit meeting with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. This comes as teams from both the U.S. and North Korea met for a sixth time today at the DMZ to finalize the summit agenda, which will take place in Singapore. Let's bring in Illinois Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. What are your expectations, Congressman, for this meeting?
I don't want to build my expectations too high. This is obviously very historic. The war has been ongoing since its beginning. We're just in a truce phase. So I think the idea, if anybody tries to put out there that by June 12th the war is going to be over, we're going to have everything solved and North Korea is going to denuclearize, is unrealistic. But this is beginning, hopefully, that I don't want to say trust building because you can't trust North Korea, but that process to get to a verifiable, an infinity basically, never seeing North Korea get nuclear weapons, and hopefully an end to the Korean War. So I think people need to keep their expectations at a moderate level, but keep in mind, this is the moment. Like, you're not going to ever get any higher than this in diplomacy. If this fails, and this is a message to Kim Jong-un, if this fails, the only other option America has is to allow North Korea to get nuclear weapons, weapons, which this president won't, or military action. So we pray God this works.
For President Trump's part, he sounds rather optimistic heading into the meeting, now just days away. He says North Korea looks like it's moving along very well, talking about the relationship building that is taking place right now. The president, he's been going into this like this is going to be a success. I mean, you have to, right? You have to go into this believing that the outcome will be good.
You do have to. You have to have an end state in mind. Otherwise, there's no reason to engage in diplomacy because you don't even know what you're negotiating for. So I think the president has his end state in mind, which is, look, there will be some gives to the North Koreans. We're not interested in invading North Korea just to invade North Korea. So there'll be some security guarantees likely along with that, some economic guarantees, as Secretary Pompeo has said. But those don't come free. The cost of that is you will never have a nuclear weapon in North Korea because you've made your intentions very clear. You have said that you want to hit Guam, you want to hit the mainland United States, you want to hit our allies. At some point, we have to take those words very seriously. And so, again, the old trust but verify, I don't know if I'd really even trust, but definitely would verify with North Korea this. It would work out for the regime in the long term, although I hate the regime, but it would definitely work out for American security and our allies if we can get this done. But it will take some time.
And a big part of the planning is the timetable and the means of denuclearizing North Korea. What do you expect is happening in the days that lead up to this summit actually taking place?
There's a lot of technicality. You know, it's the stupid things, the old adage of, is it going to be a square table or a round table? That's just used as a way to talk about all the little things that have to be negotiated. My guess is there's talks between officials about where we want to go, what we want to see to lead up to the culmination of Kim Jong-un and President Trump meeting. But ultimately, again, this is going to be I think, a long process, but something that we need to engage in, because if the United States military, God forbid, is ever called upon to do the denuclearizing of North Korea, we need to know that we have exhausted every option. And the president he's got some challenges too. This cannot look like the Iran deal when all is said and done. This has to, unlike the Iran deal, be verifiable and for infinity.
Certainly some lessons could be learned. In the president's words, we'll see what happens. The congressman from Illinois, thank you.
You bet. See ya.
Got this going on, too. Moments from now, we'll get a hearing from the Philadelphia Eagles. Head coach Doug Peterson. He's going to speak in moments from for the first time since the president disinvited his team from the White House. So we will bring that to you, watching that camera live. Sandra?
Plus, a military vehicle stolen from a National Guard base. How far the suspect got before police were able to arrest him.
Also, the results, they are in from some of California's primary races yesterday, and the Trump-backed candidate will be fighting for a win in November. That man is John Cox. He is live in a moment. Tell us how what's happening in his home state and how he plans to win come November. That's next.
1960. That's 1-800-470-1960.
House Speaker Paul Ryan talking about Devin Nunes, Trey Gowdy, and others.
I think we're pretty far into the deadline, but I don't want to speak on behalf of the ITC. So I'm just not going to say that. I think we're down the road, and unless the ITC says they don't need as much time, they could do it within the timeline to get it on the floor in December. That's what it would take to do that.
And also, is there anything that Congress can do to limit the president's power to impose tariffs? And would you support?
You'd have to pass a law that he would want to sign into law, and that would be what it would take. And you can do the math on that. Wong. I'll get you in case.
Tomorrow you're going to pitch a compromise immigration bill to your conference. Are you confident, optimistic that that's something that could get 218 Republican votes at this point?
I feel good about the kind of conversations we're having. Our members are earnest and sincere in trying to understand each other's perspectives. We have a big swath of views within our conference on this issue, and I really do believe that there's a sweet spot here. I think the president was extremely productive when he put out his 4 pillars. They're extraordinarily reasonable. They attempt to actually fix the solution. Remember, when we fix DACA, we want to fix it permanently so we don't have another DACA problem down the road. And so we're having productive conversations. We plan on having a conference-wide conversation for 2 or 3 hours tomorrow. And that's what we should be doing, is talking out among ourselves so the majority can function. And we don't want to do a discharge petition, obviously.
Does the sweet spot include a pathway?
You'll see.
Last question, Mr. Speaker. Do you believe that the president has the power to pardon himself?
I don't know the technical answer to that question, but I think obviously the answer is he shouldn't, and no one is above the law. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks.
So there we are, Paul Ryan there taking a few questions there, weekly press conference on the Hill, so we'll see where that goes. We're waiting on the IG report. Will it be today? Will it be tomorrow? Will it be next week? We don't know, but it should tell us what the next wrinkle is in this story. All right, this from last night now. Roll it and check it out.
It wasn't President Trump that gave us one of the most expensive and failing school systems in the country. It wasn't Donald Trump who piled on the fees, the taxes, the regulations, the delay that has made our housing the most expensive in the country. And it wasn't Donald Trump that passed the sanctuary state. Gavin, you did that.
There's John Cox late last night, wasting no time. The Trump-backed Republican securing a spot in the general election come November. He will face Democrat Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom in that race. John Cox is with me now. Sir, congratulations to you. Second place finish. Some people thought you could. Some people thought you could not. But tell us what you think it means. Tell us how much you think it means, if at all, right now.
It means something to Californians who are struggling under the highest taxes in the country. We're going to repeal the gas tax, first of all, and then we're going to go through, Bill, and we are going to cut the waste, the corruption in government. This is a gorgeous state. It's got wonderful natural beauty. It's got lousy political management, and Gavin Newsom is doubling down on that. He's made no mistake about what he wants to do. He wants to double the state income tax. He wants to increase property taxes. He wants to defend this outrageous gas tax when they won't reform Caltrans, which spends 4 times what Texas does to build a mile of road. I've had it. The people of California have had it. This debate is going to set up a clear choice between Venezuela, which is what Gavin Newsom wants California to look like, and the California dream restored, which is what I'm aiming to do. This state is wonderful, and we've got to change the regime in Sacramento, get the special interests out of power, and return this state to the great golden state it is.
Okay, there's your platform. Here's Gavin Newsom from late last night. We heard from you, and here's the Democrat now.
Voters will have a real choice this November between a governor who's going to stand up to Donald Trump and a foot soldier in his war on California. Mark my words, I've never backed down from a fight.
So here we have a state where you have all these stories that the country's paying attention to.
Right.
But it's a blue state, and you'll recognize that. And
Sure.
Just, you know, from your own gut, how uphill is this climb for you to win in November?
You know what? There's a lot of pundits who called it wrong. They said there were going to be 2 Democrats. They got it wrong. It's going to be me in the top 2 with Gavin Newsom. And he's right. This is a clear choice. He is doing what politicians do, Bill, and that is they misdirect and they try to distract people. Donald Trump didn't create our housing crisis. Donald Trump didn't make our schools 45th in the nation. Donald Trump didn't destroy the California Water Project by tearing down reservoirs. Donald Trump didn't make us the poverty capital and the homeless capital of the country and the laughingstock of the country with businesses and people wanting to move out. Gavin Newsom wants to blame Donald Trump. He ought to look in the mirror because the people of this state know who's responsible for the quality of life here. Let me tell you, Maryland has a Republican registration that's lower than California, and they've got a good Republican governor who focuses, like me, on the quality of life and getting government to work for the people, not for the special interests, and that's what I'm going to do here in
5 months to sell your case. Just want to share this tweet that came from the West Wing just a short time ago. Great night for Republicans, writes the president. Congratulations, John Cox, on a really big number in California. He can win. Even fake news CNN said the Trump impact was really big, much bigger than they ever thought possible. So much for the big blue wave. It may be a big red wave. Working hard. Your reaction to that, sir? Because you got a big 5 months ahead of you. If you pull it off, it would be, it really would be a stunner. So go ahead and characterize that based on what you're hearing from the president.
You know what? All around the world, people are rising up against corruption in government. The corruption of the moneyed interests. The president is going to try to drain the swamp in Washington. It's been an uphill thing for him. I'm going to clean out the barn in Sacramento. I'm with him in terms of going after the career politicians and the special interests who are literally destroying the opportunity of people here in California.
Yeah. John Cox, thank you for your time. We got some breaking news all over the place right now, but we will speak again, sir. Thank you for your time.
I know. Thank you, Bill.
Head coach Peterson of the Philadelphia Eagles is speaking now from the team's practice facility.
We're focused on today.
Let's listen.
Focused on getting a great practice in today, tomorrow, 3 days next week, and our goal is 2018, and that's motivation enough.
Did you feel like you had to address this whole situation with your players in a team meeting?
No. I mean, listen, it's no.
When you said you guys practiced yesterday, was everyone too much focused on football and everything? Was anybody talking about it?
Nobody was talking about it. Nobody. It's over. It's behind us. We're moving on.
How do you try to cut out the distractions, whether it's this or anything else that's set out there? Is it relying on the veteran leadership? Is it something from you? How do you cut out the distractions?
The way I cut it out is I focus on today. You know, I come in here with energy, sit in front of the team, and say we got a great day, practice coming up, and we're gonna make the most, and we're gonna get better as a football team today. And for me, that eliminates any distraction.
Did you get an extra day of practice as a result of not having to do that?
No, because this is actually a 4-week, and you get 10 OTAs. This week is 4 days, so we were able to get all 10 of our OTAs in, which is good.
When the news came down on Monday night, you decided to practice yesterday. Did you consider doing something else with the team yesterday?
No. Like paintball and bowling and all that? Golf? No. No, it would have been fun, but no,
You've been hearing the Eagles head coach there at what is normally just a news conference.
Yeah. Practice.
But this, of course, is after the cancellation of the Super Bowl champions' visit to the White House yesterday. He really said he wasn't going to weigh in on it. So didn't hear a whole lot there, but interesting to listen in and see.
The owner's been pretty critical of this administration, too. Quick break here. Back in a moment after this.
It started with an assertion that basically I had never apologized, as if I had never tried to come to grips with it, and as if there had been no attempt to hold me accountable. Nonetheless, I realized, hey, there are a lot of people that don't have any memory of that, and all they saw was me mad, and I seemed to be tone deaf, to put it mildly.
So that was from last night. Former President Bill Clinton on with Stephen Colbert addressing what was considered a combative interview on NBC, where he was pressed on the Monica Lewinsky matter in the wake of the Me Too movement some 20 years later. Marie Hart, Fox News analyst, co-host of Benson and Hartford, Brad Blakeman, former deputy assistant to George W. Bush. How you doing, guys? And good morning to both of you. This is, I guess, Marie, Colbert's position was whether or not the president was being tone deaf in the way he looks at this issue today. Did you get a sense of that from the series of interviews and appearances he's done over the past couple of days?
Definitely. I think that President Clinton is being tone deaf here, and I don't know what he expected when he wrote a novel and went on a book tour. This is the Me Too movement era. He knew he would get these questions. I actually feel kind of bad for his co-author, this novelist, who's just sitting there like, really, we have to talk about this. But I think what's been upsetting is I'm someone who supported the Clinton presidency, and the way Bill Clinton is handling this issue today is undercutting a lot of the work he's done since he left office to rebuild his reputation as someone who's focused on eradicating poverty, combating global health crises. This is really hurting what I think has been a post-presidency legacy that actually has been a pretty strong one.
Brad, I know you're not much of a fan.
No.
And we look at this issue in a different way than we did in 1995 or even 1998 when he was at the National Prayer Breakfast. And, you know, in the interview on NBC, he said, that's when I apologized to everybody, my own family, my staff, the Lewinskys, et cetera. How does he get past this, or does he ever?
I don't think he ever does. 20 years later, he's still playing the victim. When he was the predator, this was an intern's first job. Bill Clinton, did these acts in a federal office building. The West Wing is the federal office building of the president. It didn't happen in the residence. Couldn't happen in the residence because Hillary was there. And it's all about him. Woe is me. I lost my law license. I was impeached. Haven't I been through enough? I apologize. No, he never apologized directly, personally, to Miss Lewinsky. Never even made an attempt to do it. And after all the years that have gone by, there's no contrition even to this day. So I don't think he'll ever get over it.
Okay.
I don't think he thinks he has to.
There was a cleanup effort in Harlem just the other night. This is kind of how it came out. Marie, I'll get you to react to this next.
The hubbub was I got hot under the collar because of the way the questions were asked, and I think what was lost are the 2 points that I made that are important to me. I meant it then and I meant it now. I apologize to my family, to Monica Lewinsky and her family, and to the American people. The second is that I support the Me Too movement, and I think it's long overdue.
No. Enough or not?
Well, I don't think it's enough, and I can't judge what Hillary Clinton or Monica Lewinsky are thinking about those public apologies. Private apologies are different. Here's what I don't like, Bill. As a Democrat who supported the Bill Clinton presidency, the oxygen that both he and Hillary continue to take up in the Democratic political world is not helping. I want to focus on the future of the Democratic Party. People like Danny O'Connor running in Ohio, people like Alyssa Slotkin running in Michigan. I want everyone to be talking about those candidates and not about something that a Democratic president did 20 years ago. And I think the Clintons really need to be careful and think long and hard about what they're going to do publicly leading up to the midterms in November.
Brad, I'll give you the last word on this. Marie makes a number of interesting points. The whole response on the NBC interview the other day that really started all this is that he was arguing that they came out of the White House $16 million in debt. Now you look at the Clinton Foundation, all the money they have raised, I mean the millions and hundreds of millions of dollars around the world. Last comment, Brad.
Yeah, he wants people to feel sorry for him. He has nothing to feel sorry for himself. He brought this on himself. And if anything, Bill Clinton is the poster boy for the Me Too movement. He's the reason that the movement exists. And it's a shame, but he will never come to grips with it. I think that he's incapable of doing it.
Well, we're going to see him in a live event coming up here honoring the death of Robert Kennedy. That's happening today also. Thanks, Marie. Thanks, Brad. Talk to you real soon. You bet. Thanks.
New reaction from President Trump after Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell canceled the August recess due to what he calls historic obstruction from Democrats. President Trump tweeting about it today, saying, quote, Mitch McConnell announced he will cancel the Senate's August recess. Great. Maybe the Democrats will finally get something done other than their acceptance of high crime and high taxes. We need border security. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel, live from Capitol Hill. Mike, any sign House Republicans will follow the Senate's lead?
No, Sandra. For one, in terms of procedure, the House can move a lot faster, and the House does not have to confirm presidential nominees. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell notes they must do those confirmations and pass funding bills.
Well, I'm all for cooperation, but if you look at the amount of work that we have to do, it's inconceivable to me that we can't use these weeks, even with cooperation. We've got a lot of appropriation bills to pass.
President Trump and a lot of McConnell's newer senators have been pushing to stay in session longer.
We've got a lot more to do. And Louisianians understand that good things come to those who work their ass off. And I'm ready to work nights, weekends, all of August, Christmas, whatever it takes.
McConnell blamed Democrats for historic obstruction, and now he can keep a lot of Democrats off the campaign trail in August. Sandra?
Mike, how many Democrats reacted to this power play by McConnell?
Well, they're saying, fine, then let's make August all about health care.
It's a wonderful, great opportunity Leader McConnell has given us to go after these high costs and help average American folks. And we are going to make sure all the time, every day, every week that we're here, we're going to be focusing on health care.
Some senators likely to face tough re-elections in November are not amused.
It's a calculation of raw politics on the part of Mitch McConnell. He thinks by keeping us here, because we have to vote, that's what we're elected to do, and which I will do, he thinks that's going to make a difference on elections where there are Democratic incumbents. But at the end of the day, he's mistaken.
no surprise the two parties would have very different visions about how to use that time in August. Sandra?
Mike Emanuel, thank you.
Nothing really focuses the mind like losing your vacation. That's it. So let's see where this goes, right?
Changes things.
Okay, we've got an alert from overnight now. There's even more destruction from Hawaii. We're looking at boiling lava spilling over a pair of oceanfront neighborhoods. A live report on the ground as to what's happening today and what can be expected. Coming up.